Hello, friendly friends. So, it turns out that Lad did not realize that they were muted this entire video. So, now I have to do voiceover. So, you get voiceover Starless for this entire video. And instead of trying to pretend I know whatever the heck is going on in this video, I will instead leave that up to your interpretation while I do more of a podcast style episode full of stories. So I hope you enjoyed this different style episode, and likewise, I hope Lad doesn't make a dumb mistake like this again. So the first story I have is a very light-hearted one. So back in my days of elementary school, I started many different clubs. There was the Combination Songs Club, where we came up with songs that were themed around the combination of two animals or things, like a duckfish, a llama wire, or a potato turkey. We would perform these works of art with little choreographies in front of the other kids at recess. Another club I started was the Inchworm Club, where we'd search for an inchworm at recess and befriend it before abandoning it in the grass at the end of recess. This club died off once we had single-handedly demolished the inchworm population on our playground by uprooting them from the trees in which they lived. There was also the Worm Sanctuary, where we'd collect worms off the basketball court so we could prevent them from getting stepped on while kids played, and one of the club members took it upon himself to be the surgeon and would cut off dried parts of the worms and then put them in the rehabilitation pit. By far the most successful club I had was the Weirdo Club. So I came up with a list of 10 questions, and I remember one of them being potato, and another being think of the most random thing you can think of. And who are the interviewee's answer to that question would be their weirdo name. Most people liked that concept, except for the person who had said rat poo as their answer. I was, of course, the leader of every club I made, and this was no exception, except after a few weeks of meetings and competitions of who was the weirdest, the popularity of the group started to backfire. Since this club had drawn in more children than any other club, that means they were more stereotypical popular kids in this club. And once those kinds of kids think they can gain a seat of power, they don't stop. So I could sense a looming dread in the distance as some of the popular kids began to lose faith in my leadership. They proposed a democracy and term limits on whoever was the weirdo leader. However, I didn't let them shake me. I stood firm in my position. I had created this kingdom, and I wasn't going to give up my throne to a few peasants that thought they deserved better. So, when the rebels approached me, giving me their terms, I boldly said, "Ha, no, this is my club. Leave if you want." So the club slowly dwindled in size. But it was worth it to weed out the false weirdos. Eventually, however, the club died out, as many had before it, and new clubs began to take its place, until I started the stick fighting club, and the teachers had to intervene so we didn't get hurt, especially once I found a stick twice my height and screamed and threatened anyone who dared come near me and my staff of power. The next story I have is a more serious one. Mental health is a serious issue, and it is very important to discuss, especially to children who are learning to navigate their emotions. I was never taught the word anxiety in school or at home. So anytime I went to an amusement park and wasn't able to go on the rides because my heart was pounding and I felt like an uncontrollable sense of doom, I just thought I was scared. When I would start to panic just at the thought of raising my hand to answer a question in class, even if I knew the answer, I just thought I was scared. And at parent teacher conferences, teachers would constantly tell my parents that I should speak up more. They want to hear my ideas. So I'd go out of my way to overcome this fear, when in reality it wasn't a fear, especially since I love talking and being at the center of attention. I love the feeling I got from imagining going through the biggest and scariest rides in the park. But whenever it came down to the moment, I would freeze up and be rendered practically catatonic. It was only recently that I began to realize certain things. I had social anxiety and generalized anxiety, and for the most part, it wasn't in my control. This was extremely important for me to realize because, one, it meant that I could understand that I wasn't a coward. I was merely experiencing symptoms of a mental disorder. And two, it meant that there were other people like me experiencing the same things, and there were certain coping mechanisms I could use to manage those symptoms. Before I truly realized these things, however, my social anxiety fell away for other reasons, and I attributed that to a growing self-esteem. After I moved from Europe to North America, everything got easier. The teachers were better, and the classes were easier, and I had a lot more time on my hands. And I used it to begin my passion of writing a fantasy book. The more I wrote this book, the more confident I became in my abilities, and as I wrote through the internal conflicts of my characters, I began to work through my own internal conflicts and learn more about myself. This led to this led to me having a higher self-esteem, and suddenly I had a lot more confidence confidence when it came to raising my hand in class and sharing my opinions. Now, I have almost completely overcome my social anxiety, and if any kind of anxiety pops up for me, I'm able to use coping mechanisms I've learned over the years to get myself to a better place. I went on to finish and print out my first book, then my second, and I'm almost done writing my third book, but for the purposes of antagonism, I will keep information on those books separate from my video creation life. The moral of these stories, since all stories have meaning, is that one, you should always be trying to understand yourself more, and two, being a dictator, however fun, is rather unstable. I'll end this video with a little montage of all the work Lad has done on this island, and inform you that this is not the end of LadCraft. Lad has many more things in their brain that they'd like to do on this world, and the end is far from nigh. Cue my improvised music and fancy montage.